Alfre Woodard, Clemency. People will start seeing that very soon. Bernadine, your warden character that you play in this movie, is a very tough lady, very composed, but very by the book. Where does she rank in terms of tough ladies you played in your career?
I don't think she is a tough lady in that regard. I think she is exacting. She has to be a person who is able to control her actions as well as her emotions, because she is a warden in a death row facility. And one of the things that is of prime importance in a facility like that, or even just a medium security prison, is protocol. And she is a person that understands the importance of protocol, and that if you let little stitches slip, the whole thing can unravel. And that's how she operates. I think she's a person not unlike a military person, a combat troop. She would be a good Navy gunner. She understands that somebody's got to do a job. And because she has a sense of order and compassion, and she believes in other people's dignity, she would be the person who would man that, or woman that position. So I don't think of her as tough as much as she is not hysterical, the way, say, I would be, or a lot of other artists that I know, emotional. And so she really is a person. The women wardens that I met, and I met probably 3 wardens and a deputy warden who was a woman, and a couple of men wardens. I think they would be in your book club. They'd be at your church or your synagogue or your temple, or at your PTA meeting. So I think we imagine them as people that, when they were kids, especially a woman, you think, why did she, what kind of kid was she? Did she line her dolls up and stomp on them? What happened there? But they come to the administration of these facilities from the mental health profession, some from social work. So she really is, a person, a regular person, but one that is able to control emotions, to help control situations that can easily get out of hand. I have played some tough women. One of my favorites is Mariah Dillard Stokes, that I did for Luke Cage, especially the second season of that. She is a ruthless woman in actions and in effect, but my job as the actor is to always find the way of looking out onto the world that human being is that you're bringing to life. So I can say she's ruthless, but nobody wakes up in the morning going, how can I be an asshole today?
Nobody ever thinks they're a villain.
Yeah, everybody thinks, I know how to do this. I know how to fix this. I would be. So, and it's those conflicting things that create drama.
I guess I chose the wrong word in tough. She's tough in terms of her resilience, and she's tough in terms of the fact that she goes by the protocols and the rules. She's got compassion, but she's also going to follow what she's been told to do.
Yeah, she's got compassion, because if you're going to take somebody out, you want it to be precise. You don't want any mistakes. And people looking on might judge that, but that's the way you give dignity. Because if her job is to carry out the wishes of the state, and we as taxpayers, can affect the laws by the people that we put there, that's our job if we want it to go a different way. But since it is the law, this is how you do it. And you don't, if you sort of get touchy-feely or varying things or making special allowances, it only prolongs the misery in a way.
And we see that in the scene where the grieving couple is in front of you, and as an audience member, you're wondering, will she change her mind here? Because I'm sure she gets this all the time, where somebody comes in and wants something that she just can't provide. She
can't provide, and she also can't give false hope. And she also never knows what's going to happen. When she said to them, I don't know. She can kind of tell at the end from what has happened previously in, say, 12 executions that, it's going to go on. But she's always waiting for that call. She's hoping that call comes, because essentially what you're doing, anybody that's been on the row has been there at least 10 years. Some people up 15, 20 years, except McVeigh. There was a whole special circumstance with him, Timothy McVeigh. But that's a person that she's known for 10 years at least. When they're on a row, say like somewhere like Ohio, or a person, our prison isn't in Ohio, but we did, Chinonye Chukwu, the filmmaker, and I did a prison tour because she has relationships of teaching screenwriting in Ohio prisons and actually meeting people there in administrative positions. But essentially what you're doing, say there's 9 men on a block, a death row block. There's the guy, there's probably 2 or 3 officers there. One of them sits in the cage, so they trade off. But those men are seeing each other all the time. The warden sees them, the major. Those are the only people that are seeing them for those 10 years. So those become your office mates in a way. And then suddenly one day you turn and say, okay, Bob, we got to take you out now. So the personal devastation that you have to kind of buck up and carry through and deal with the aftermath, you're taking the life of someone you know all the time, because they are segregated from the rest of the prison population. And so that's a thing that you have to be steady to carry out.
One of the themes I saw in the movie, I'm sure it was meant to be, was just the weariness that your character has, your husband has, Richard Schiff's character, the chaplain. You're all weary from the process and your jobs over a long stretch of time.
It is a fact that they have, people have examined this and charted it, that the people that work in those positions, they have as high a PTSD rate than people that we have sent into multiple tours of duty in battle. If they have a marriage, it is one of their many marriages. It is, it wrecks you, to say the least.
Well, tell me about Wendell Pierce, because he's one of those actors we watched for a long time. I don't think has ever gotten his due, even though he works all the time. What's he like to work with?
What do people mean when they say getting your due?
Well, I don't think he's been nominated for any major awards or anything like that.
Okay,
and people in the audience may not even know his name, but they're familiar with him.
Well, yeah, he's familiar because he has been there all the while. He's been brilliant every time out. And getting awards isn't what we call getting our due. That's why I asked that. He is a very successful actor because from the first time he stepped out, and he never arrives without it being a full-on human being that he has found a reality, and to play it like a virtuoso. He is that actor, one of those actors you want to be in the boat with when you're out at sea. It's like, yeah, I'll go to sea with you. You want to know that person will bring out the best in you, and you can trust them and believe in them and their strength and their smarts and their navigational skills. So I was so excited when Chinonye and Bronwyn Cornelius and Chinonye Chukwu is our filmmaker, Bronwyn is our producer, when they said, well, we're really hoping we can get Wendell Pierce. We approached him, I said, yes! Oh, you have to, because I knew that of the work that had to be done, and you want people of like mind and like ability and having the common language of the way that she wanted to shoot. So yeah, he is amazing. I can't wait. I'm going to London to see him do Salesman. It'll probably end up back in the States, but I want to see him do it here. He's just really.
I've never seen him in anything where he wasn't exceptional.
I know. I know, and he brought so much of this. When I say brought so much, I mean even, working scenes, giving us the point of view of that man that has to accompany this woman, who loves her, who they have a history, and he has a whole, he's got an arc himself. Not a lot of it played out on camera, but he's been teaching in the public schools for 30 years, and we see him teaching Invisible Man. Oh, so he brought a lot into every moment that he was on screen.
We've interviewed Aldous Hodge a few times over the past few years, and I remember the first time talking to him, I thought, this is a really good up-and-coming actor. Mm-hmm. What was he like working with?
He is, I think he's definitely a trained actor, but he's got good instincts, and he relies on those instincts. A lot of people don't understand you get back to your instincts once you've done all of the technical work, and Aldous has that. He also has said that having less dialogue actually gives you more freedom to say more with your body, your face, your intentions, and that was what was true of all of us. And one of the reasons we signed up is because also talking to Chinoy and knowing that she wanted to pace this in a way, the way that life paces out. A lot of times in commercial films, people cut, who's talking? Ooh, let's see their mouth back to back. But real actors understand that when you're recreating a human action, which is what drama is, life happens in between the lines, not on what you say. And so to have a filmmaker that says, okay, I want to shoot the life, and I'm going to be, and I'll stay on you, I'll move, and that, we knew that was going to be the language of the film. You
need those pauses in the really good projects like this because it does convey life, where everything's not just rat-a-tat-tat dialogue.
Well, nothing in life is rat-a-tat-tat. Right. Even if it is rat-a-tat-tat, you want to go to the faces that aren't speaking, because acting is listening, and when you listen with your whole self, every pore of your body, and you respond. And respond doesn't mean you say something back. Your response is what happens there.
Mm-hmm. We're an awards website, so I want to ask you a couple of awards-related questions. Tell me about your Oscar experience, your first nomination. We feel like there might be another one coming around the corner, but tell us about your first time at the Oscars.
Okay, the first time. Okay, let me tell you what happened. That was very. It sets the stage for my experience onward in life. It might have been 84, I don't know.
That's right.
But my very best friend that morning at maybe 3:34 a.m., he passed on from the virus. And back then, if you contracted HIV, people just thought you were dead. And, people left quicker than they should have because it was a death sentence back then. So we left Lamont, he left us, and we came back to the house. And within an hour, I got a phone call from my agent saying, this had happened. And I said, okay, oh, that's great. So I was like weeping and saying that's great and feeling great. It's like, and Lamont should have been there, because he was the one that would have known what it all meant anyway. He was my best friend. And I didn't know where to put any of that. So I got off the phone. I was like, okay, this is great. And then I said, well, wait a minute, now how did I get it? Because they said you got a nomination. I said, how did I get it? I knew it was for Cross Creek, but I didn't know what the Academy was, how it worked, any of that. I was a working actor. I focused on work, and I wasn't so focused that way. And they said, we'll talk to you later about it. It's the Academy. And And I got off the phone and I told my then fiance, who was my husband, actually, no, we were married a few months right before that. And I lived on a walking street in Manhattan Beach, and I just found myself walking down to the ocean, just like crying and kind of smiling. And I just walked in my clothes, and I just stood in the water in my clothes, and I wept. Then I came back up to, eventually to the house, and I called my parents. My mother always, she was just so supportive of her children. Everything you did, my mother would go, very good. Well, good for you. So she knew that my sister and brother were principals, teachers, and counselors. So she'd go like, oh, very good. So when I said, hey, Mom, I got a nomination from the Academy, she goes, good for you. Very good. And my father was on the other line. The first thing my father said to me is, babe, you got to get yourself a good dress. Like, okay, Daddy. And so, they were supportive, but my parents, I could have, won the volleyball championship of, at the Olympics. I could have did anything. So that was great. And then we went to the Oscars, and it was kind of like we arrived. I'd never been anywhere like this. And it was down at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion back then. Come around the corner, people, the end is near. Hollywood scum Satan. And it was like, holy shit, what's going on? And then there were people going, yeah. And then there were fancy people, and it was like you had arrived at Mardi Gras, the Super Bowl, the end of days. I remember, did you ever, I don't know how long you've been in the business, but Day of the Locusts?
Yeah.
It was like that. It was like all at once we were in the car just kind of giggling on like, what the hell are we? And we went inside and just had a really fun time.
And very close to that same time frame, you win your first Emmy Award. You've won 4 now. What did that mean for your career to win an Emmy so early?
Honestly, it's been good to know by being honored with these things, because you are nominated by your peers, the people that practice the same thing you do and know what it is, what it takes. So that's kind of great, because you go like, okay, yeah, the people that speak the language, you're like, oh, my language is sharp at this. But for me, as a Black woman in Hollywood, it didn't do anything. The people that hired me always continued to hire me, the types of people. And I kept going because, you're meeting young people in different disciplines and positions within the industry. And as they come of age, they call you up, but they're your people. It's not like anything ever opened up. Those same kind of outliers and mavericks and odd, people that weren't considered commercial, like Bob Altman gave me my first couple of jobs. I couldn't get arrested on network. So they're the ones that kept calling and still do. I never got kind of what you might call mainstream, maybe till a few years ago when I played the president on a television series. But so that hasn't been my walk at all.
You set a record. I don't know if you're aware of this. You don't have the most nominations. You have 18. Some people have 20 or 22 in terms of performers. But nobody is even close to you on this fact. 16 out of your 18 are for different roles. It means that the producers are hiring you for these great projects, and then you're contributing on an excellent level. So 16 different roles have brought you Emmy nominations.
See, this is the thing. My colleagues, my Caucasian colleagues who are women, they had a different experience than I did. And one of the things that I think it helped me do is to clarify why I act, why I tell stories. Because people say, oh, now that this happened, then this is going to happen. Well, if it doesn't, it's like, okay, well, I'm not traveling down that road. What's here? And so I was able to understand very early on to ask myself, okay, I didn't even know that existed. And now people are talking about that. Why did you start this? How do you work? Who do you work with? Who do you want to reach with your stories? And so that meant, I must follow the script. I must follow the story. So then I had you might look on and say, the misfortune of not being, because back then that's when they said out loud to your face, Germany, Japan, they don't really want any black product. Black product meant if there are more than 2 people in it, it could be 20 white people in it, but there are 2 black people in it. But we found out now that was BS, because network has blown that whole thing out of the water. We're as interested in a shepherdess's story from Tibet as we are in, a Valley Girl or whomever.
A good story is a good story.
A well-told story about a human being touches human beings. But anyway, so the good fortune is that I figured out right then you follow the story. So I've had these great experiences working in any medium that the story happened to be in. It could be street theater, but I'm going to follow the writing and the filmmaker. And so I've never been bored.
As we finish up, you wouldn't know this, but my favorite drama series of all time is St. Elsewhere.
Really?
Some people say Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones, but mine has always been St. Elsewhere.
Well, that was before. That was when before you just started to show everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you all pioneered a lot of things that are still used on television today. The way the walk and talks in the hallways and multiple dialogue going over each other.
Yeah. How do you get better than that?
I know.
With Paltrow and Tom Fontana and John Macius in them.
Well, that's the one role, Dr. Roxanne Turner, that brought you multiple nominations, because you got 2 for St. Elsewhere, and then you played her again on Homicide.
I did get 2 for St. Elsewhere?
2 for 1 lead and 1 supporting or guest, because you came on at first as a guest star, I think. Well, anyway. And
you know things I don't know.
And then you played her on Homicide, too, with Tom Fontana. But do you think if somebody came to you and said, we got another story for Roxanne Turner, is there any part of you that would want to play her in another project?
When you find a character, and a character is a person, once you know who that is and how to look out of the world from that point of view, that's like saying, you did that brilliant Lady Macbeth. You probably never want to do it. Like, you want Lady Macbeth to be in Saint-Tropez? I'll go be in a comedy of Lady Macbeth in Saint-Tropez. And if it is good writing, it becomes classic, and everybody should visit it, and especially the person who established it should be able to revisit it.
And you had a lot of scenes with Denzel Washington on St. Elsewhere. We talked about Aldous Hodge. I remember watching St. Elsewhere, and I'm in my teens going, this guy's going to go a long way. Could you see that too, opposite him?
If I say no, then I'm up a creek. No, we are friends. His youngest, the twins, are godchildren. I am godmother to them. And I'll tell you a funny story. So I saw Soldiers Play. I'd seen it in New York, and then I saw it at the Taper. And that's when all those guys came out to LA. They'd done the Broadway show, came at the Taper to do Soldiers Play. And I was riveted by all of them on stage. And I won't even begin to name everybody, but I know my good friend Eugene Lee, I know Adolph Caesar, everybody, and Denzel. And when I saw him work, I thought, I'm going to work with him. And so then about a week later, I got offered this thing. There used to be a theater called the Mayfair Theater in Santa Monica on 2nd Street. It was called Split Second. Oh my God. Director Harold, I'll think of it in a minute, but he was a Broadway director who was then out here starting to direct film and television. And so I said, I'll be in this play, because I was playing Denzel's wife, and I said, okay, I'll say yes to this play, just so that I can work with Denzel. And then 2 weeks later, I got a call, them calling me in, Paltrow and Fontana, and saying, we want to introduce a new character, a doctor, and it would be a love interest to Denzel's character. And also, they said we want a doctor who kind of like screws up, because all of our doctors are making these choices, these heroic choices all the time, the actors. And so I could have skipped that play if I had known that was coming. But yeah, I got to work with him.
Well, listen, I hope everybody goes out and sees Clemency, because it's such an important subject matter. Your performance is amazing in it, and maybe we'll see you back on some awards red carpets here over the next few months.
You know what my hope is, my dream is that when it opens wide, this is why I did the film. This is why Chinonye Chukwu wrote and shot the film, is to have this be part of mainstream conversation. We've never looked at the lives of the people that carry out, that we charge to carry out our wishes of having state-sponsored execution, and have whatever conversation that brings. So I want this to go to the malls. I don't want it in the art houses. I want it in the malls, so everybody can have this conversation that is pressing, because we keep losing people when, since we were done with this back in early summer, and since then there have been people that have been put to death. So that's what I'm hoping, is that it gives yet another component of a conversation that we need to have as Americans.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.